All right, now we're going to start discussing one-sided limits. And actually there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to do the same as what we were doing before, which is considered a two-sided limit. Because remember, before we always, like when we looked at our graphs, we always had to check and see, what was happening from the right side, what was happening from the left side. So a one-sided limit, you're only concerned with what's happening on one side. So the notation is very similar. So on the first one, you'll notice the only thing that's different about this notation is it's got the little plus sign. So if it's got the little plus sign after that value, then that means they're wanting you to do the limit just from the right-hand side. If it's got the little negative sign, then that just means they're wanting you to figure out what the limit is from the left-hand side. So like before, there wasn't a plus or a minus. So as long as there's not one, then that means two-sided limit. Whereas here, you would consider it from both sides. All right, now, when the limit from the left is not equal to the limit from the right, the two-sided limit does not exist. Okay, and that's something that we've already talked about. But when you're just doing a one-sided, it could be that your limit does exist from the left-hand side, but yet the two-sided limit may not exist. Okay, so what's happening with a one-sided versus what's happening with a two-sided, it's different. Okay, all right. So what we're going to do first is actually just look at some graphs, so you can get an idea of what it's talking about. So use the graph to determine the limit and discuss the continuity. Okay. Now, I've gone in here, and of course I've got the little tick marks that I've marked. These are by ones, okay? So first of all, we're asked about the limit as x approaches -2 from just the right-hand side. Okay, so the only part of this graph that you need to look at or consider is, like I said, just what's happening on the right-hand side of -2. Of course, this is your -2 tick mark here. So you would only look to see what's happening here. All right, so as you get closer and closer to x equal -2, then the y value, if you look over here, is at +2. So the limit from the right would be +2. Now remember, it doesn't matter that that's a whole, okay, because we're not asked about the function being defined at -2. We just want to know what the limit is. All right, next we want the limit as x approaches -2 from the left. So you come to the left side of -2, and if you follow your graph along as you're getting closer to x equal -2, you're approaching the same location, the same open circle, which again is located at +2. Now, the C part, it doesn't have the plus or the minus, so that's going back to your two-sided limit. So this time, you want the limit as x approaches -2. Now, if you remember, when you're dealing with a two-sided limit, the limit from the left and the limit from the right have to be the same. And actually, that's what you've already determined on A part and B part. So, since the limit from the right is 2, the limit from the left is 2, these are the same, then that would indicate that the two-sided limit does exist, and it is 2. Okay, next example. Okay, same 3 questions, of course, different graph. This time, the x value that we are approaching is -1. Okay, so here's my -1. So we're looking, first of all, the limit as x approaches -1 from the right-hand side. Okay, so if we follow the graph here, as we get closer and closer to -1, the y value that we're approaching is a y value of 0. Okay, now I've got to approach x, or x equal -1 from the left. So I've got to come in on this side of the -1, which approaches this open circle, which its y value is over here at +2. So the limit from the right was 0, the limit from the left was 2. Now this one's asking about the two-sided limit. So again, in order for the two-sided limit to exist, these two have to be the same. So since limit from the left and the right are not equal to each other, then that would indicate that this two-sided limit does not exist.